So back in the early days of Linux, perhaps the biggest hurdle for curious Windows users was the fact that so many of your favorite applications just weren't compatible with it. If you relied on Microsoft Office, Photoshop, Quicken, or just had a bunch of Windows software that you've already purchased, your transition to Linux wasn't going to be very seamless and, let's face it, probably wasn't going to happen at all. Sure, there were alternatives available, but learning new software is something that not everybody is going to feel like doing, and I get the irony of that statement considering that Linux is a completely different operating system that had quite the learning curve for Windows users. But today we're going to be taking a look at a piece of software that was supposed to make that learning curve a little bit easier. It's called Win4Lin, and it claims to offer a safe and easy migration to Linux by allowing you to run Windows applications just like you did before. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So virtualization is something that we've talked a whole lot about on this channel, but this program is pretty interesting because it functions a bit differently than your traditional virtual machine software. Instead of creating an entire virtualized appliance like VMware does, for example, Win4Lin actually patches the Linux kernel and runs Windows as a Linux process at native speeds. And reviews from the time seem to back that up, noting that Win4Lin was generally much faster and more responsive than VMware was during testing. It also integrates itself with the Linux file system, allowing you to share files between the two OSs right out of the box, and it has Linux handle things like memory management and I/O functions. However, there are some downsides, the main one being that because of how this program works, you can't just install any operating system you want. You are limited to either Windows 95 or 98, and it only supported version 2.2 of the Linux kernel. What I have here is version 2.0 of the software that was released in December of 2000 for a price of $60 as a download and $90 in a box. Also released around that time was VMware Express, which cost $80 for a download and $100 for a box copy, so Win4Lin was cheaper, but not by much. Now taking a look at the box here, we already went over a couple of the claims on the front, but it also says you don't have to make a new partition or deal with dual booting. VMware, you would have had the same thing going on with that as well, but it is worth noting, no hardware upgrades required. On the side here, you've got a list of your system requirements, as well as a list of supported distributions, because again, this does patch the Linux kernel, so they only officially supported a handful of distros. You might have been able to get it working outside of these, but you weren't going to get any support from Netraverse, the company behind this, if you chose to do that. On the back here, you've got some of the applications that they have tested with it, talks a little bit more about how it runs Windows as a Linux process and some of the other features of it here. You got a screenshot of it, and yeah, you may have been able to notice that this box has never been opened before, so we're going to change that right now and see what this program is all about. So let's crack the seal and let's get it out of its plastic prison that it's been in for, gosh, over 20 years now, and we'll open this up and see what we have inside, which should be the software itself, obviously, as well as a manual, which it looks like we've got right here. So we'll take that out, and yeah, I think that is everything. So we'll set the box aside. So this is the software. You've got a license agreement with it as well. We'll just go ahead and peel this back. Actually, it might be easier just to take my knife here and just cut this from the top. And inside of here, we've got the disc inside of a nice plastic case instead of one of those cheap paper ones, so that's pretty nice. And then you have your registration card here with a whole thing to fill out. Yeah, so you gotta do that and mail it in if you want to get technical support and, you know, whatever else they offer there on the front. And then here is the manual, which is a whopping 57 pages long. It also looks like those are some rather rusty staples in there. But yeah, so this tells you everything you need to know about getting this up and running on your Linux system, which we're going to do right now. Right after a quick word from today's video sponsor, Surfshark, who provides a VPN for your desktop, phone, and just about everything in between. I've been using them for over 4 years now on all of my devices, and it's really come in handy when I'm looking to hide my IP address from a shady website or access region-locked content. It's super easy to connect to one of their over 3,200 servers hosted in 100 countries to change your device's location in a flash. And you can do it on all of your devices at the same time because they don't have a limit like a lot of those other providers. Plus, they've got some other cool stuff bundled in. Something I really like is their alternative ID feature, which lets you create proxy email addresses for those times when you don't want to give out your real one. It all comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, and if you sign up at surfshark.com/MichaelMJD, you'll get 4 extra months for free with a purchase of a year or 2-year plan. So be sure to check them out, and huge thanks again to Surfshark for making this video possible. So our distro of choice today is Red Hat 6.2, and before we even put in the Win4Lin CD, we have to go in and disable the CD auto mount settings because those actually conflict with the installation process. And since we're in GNOME, we're going to click on the System menu, go to Settings, down to Peripherals, CD Properties, and just uncheck Automatically Mount CD and run command when CD is inserted under Audio CDs. Press OK, close out of that. Now we can pop in the CD. And most of this is going to take place from the terminal, so I'm going to open a window, and we're going to immediately elevate our session to root, so I'm going to put in that password there. And the first thing we have to do is just mount the CD manually. So I'll type out that command, and then we can change directory over to the CD-ROM, and we want to go into the Linux folder. And in here, we've got an install-kernel.sh file. Before we run that though, I just want to make note of this RPMs folder in here. If we hop into there, these are all of the kernel RPMs for the various Linux distros that Win4Lin supports. So if you're using a different kernel version than any one of these, it will let you know that. We're just going to go back up to this folder here and run the sh file. So that's install-kernel.sh. And you see it's detected that I'm running the following Linux kernel. Would you like to install the Win4Lin kernel RPM? We're going to say yes. And there you go, it added Win4Lin. Now, this is only compatible with the Lilo bootloader, and fortunately that's what Red Hat 6 here utilizes. So what we have to do is upon restart, you're going to press the tab key when the Lilo boot screen comes up, and that'll give you the option to boot into the Win4Lin patched kernel. But we got to restart now, so we're going to do that. And here's that screen, so I'm going to press tab, and we're going to type out Win4Lin and boot into that. So you can still load into the unmodified Linux kernel if you want to. And I'm going to log back into my user accounts, and we have to go right back into a terminal window, and once again elevate our session. I mean, you could just log in as the root user if you want to, but we're just going to do it like this because it works totally fine. Once again, we have to mount the CD-ROM manually. And we're going to change directory over to that. And now we want to go into the Win4Lin folder. And inside of here, we have an install Win4Lin sh file, which we're going to run. Because again, what we did is just patched the kernel. We haven't actually installed the Win4Lin software yet. And it brings up this license agreement. Now, I am running Red Hat here in 8-bit color. It's the only way I was able to get this to work once I install Windows. If I do anything higher than that with this current hardware configuration, it always just ends up locking up. So I can't actually see the license agreement. It does display if I'm using like 32-bit color, but here you just want to press Y and hit enter, and then it will begin the installation process. And there we go, it's finished copying the files. So now it asks us if we want to install Windows 98 or Windows 95 now. We'd have to put in the Windows CD. Now, this can be a little bit finicky. I've not gotten this to work on my system. What I have to do is just press no here and get out of that, and then eject the CD-ROM, which I first have to unmount it. So we'll do umount -mnt CD-ROM, and it says it's busy, so we'll give it a moment here. Alright, we got that unmounted, so now I can go ahead and pop in my Windows 98 2nd Edition CD-ROM here. And we don't actually need to mount this disk using a terminal command because the Win4Lin setup will do that automatically for us. So we're going to type in win setup to bring up this menu here, and we're going to click on System-Wide Win4Lin Administration, and then Load Windows CD. We're going to choose Install from CD-ROM drive. This is the only drive that we got here, so we'll click on Install, and it will read from the disk. And if you've done everything right, you should get this Loading Windows CD blue window that pops up. and it will begin copying Windows files. It also installs MS-DOS 7, so you have a DOS environment that you can utilize if you want to run some DOS programs. And we're just about done here. It has to make a couple images, and it should return us back to the setup menu here. There you go. Finish loading Windows files. DOS installation completed. And there we go. So now what we can do is close out of this. And we need to get out of our root elevated prompt here. So we're just going to type in exit to go back to my user account. And now we can just run win. It asks you to put this ampersand at the end, which that just makes the command run in the background. That's how it's always specified in the manual. So I'm just going to do that. And then it comes up just with a window that says Windows is not installed. Do you want to install it now? We'll say yes. And then it will go through a fully automated Windows installation. Now we get this warning just because of the color mode that I have this set, and we're just going to click on OK and ignore that. And yeah, this entire thing is fully automated. You don't have to interact with it at all, which is great. And yeah, so you're just on your way to having Windows 98 installed within your Linux system here. So we're just going to let this do its thing, and I'll be back when something interesting happens, which is probably going to be when it's finished. Alright, so we're done with that, and now we get to the one part of the setup that is not automated, which includes entering the product key. Alright, so we've finished the installation, and we are booting into the desktop right now. And the first thing we're going to do is close out of the welcome window that always loves to pop up, and we're going to choose do not show this every time the computer starts up. But we're going to immediately shut down the Windows installation because it has to do a little bit of post-install stuff down here. And there we go. So we've got Windows installed. Now, it is supposed to, well, probably not in this version, I guess, but in version 3.0, because that was actually the manual that I was looking at before I unboxed this copy here, it does mention that it makes a desktop shortcut on your Linux desktop to launch Win4Lin. Doesn't appear to do that in version 2.0. Now, we can just do that ourselves, so we'll go new launcher, and we'll just call this Win4Lin. And the command is just going to be win space ampersand. We can give it an icon if we want to. So now we can just close out of the terminal window here, double click on this, and it will load up Windows for us. Now, the boot up process is extremely fast. As you can see, like, we're already done in like a couple seconds there. We're going to go into properties here immediately because I want to lower the resolution down to 640 by 480 so that we can have this window on the screen and still be able to do stuff in our Linux environment behind us. So yeah, that's all there is to it, to getting a functioning Windows installation working under Win4Lin. The setup process, as you saw, is not really difficult. It's just different than what you might be used to if you were using VMware. But there are some things you can do with Win4Lin right out of the box that you would have to do a little bit more setup under VMware to get working. And one of those is file sharing. So because Win4Lin doesn't actually utilize a virtual hard disk file, it just maps the location of the Windows C drive as a folder in your Linux host system. And the name of the C drive is in reference to that. So if I open up my home directory here and just back out of all this, and we type in ~win, this is the Windows C drive, so I got full access to that. I can delete files, I can copy stuff over to it, do whatever I want. You also have this shared J drive here, which is mapped as another directory. I believe that is in var, and if we do Win4Lin DOS root, I believe this is that same folder here. Yeah, you see we got mwin95. We got, if I move out of this, we got mwindows share, tmp, WinCabs. So yeah, and you can share whatever folder you want by running the setup utility. And I'm going to go ahead and quit out of Win4Lin here and just shut down Windows and show you that, because there are a lot of configuration options you have available to you. So to open the configuration properties, we're going to get a terminal window up here. We're going to run win setup. And we're going to click on personal Win4Lin session configuration win. You also have a DOS configuration, which we'll come back to in a moment. So you bring this up, and if you go to drives and file system, these are all of the mounted volumes here. So you see that the C drive is mounted as the home/win folder. But if I want to add, you know, my desktop folder or something, I can click on browse. So I can select the .gnome desktop directory here. and we can make that drive, and go up to drive K if we want to. Now we've got that mounted as drive K. Under devices, you can change COM ports around. You can add like other devices, you know, if you had like something plugged into the joystick port or whatever, you know, you could check those here. You can, of course, everything just shows up as unavailable at the moment. We don't have any printer hooked up, so those settings are all grayed out. Under display, you can change, you know, color map settings and all that kind of stuff here. I just have pretty much left all these things at their default values, but you see that there is a lot of stuff to mess around with in here. You can also change how much memory that the system has. You can change auto exec and config.sys settings, but we're just going to click on save to close out of that. And now if we exit, we can just run Win from here. Now if I open up my computer, we should have the K drive. And then I got all these Linux shortcuts which don't mean anything to Windows, but notably I can open up my home directory and go into the Win folder, which is the C drive, just, you know, in like another directory here, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so let's go ahead and install a piece of software. So I've got a copy of Microsoft Office somewhere around here. I've got so many CDs in front of me. There we go, Office 97. So we'll pop that in. Now remember, we do have auto mounting turned off, but Win4Lin is able to do that for us. So the N drive here, which is the CD-ROM, should pick up here. It is spinning up, and if I refresh this, we should see, yep, there it is, Office 97 Pro. So we'll run this, click on Install Microsoft Office, and we're just going to go with a typical install for this demo. Oh, and I think the system just locked up. Yeah, it just crashed, look at that. So we're just going to run it again here. But yes, I have experienced a handful of crashes like that during my testing off camera, but that's just because of the hardware that I'm using here. It's not necessarily this program's fault, because I'm using a pretty old graphics card. It's the only one I have that is able to be recognized by Red Hat and have it actually display something properly on it. But that's why that we've got 256 color here in Windows, because if I set it to anything higher than that, it just pretty much immediately crashes. This is the only way I can get Windows functioning on this system through Win4Lin. But yeah, it has finished up, so we're going to click on OK, close out of that, and of course we can go into the Start menu and we'll have Microsoft Office in here, all of our wonderful programs. We can open up Word and do all those things that we're going to do. Oh, there's Clippy bugging the heck out of us. We'll just get out of him. And yeah, so what I could do if I want to is, you know, just type out my channel name for whatever reason. I don't know why I defaulted to doing that. We'll just click on save, and we can save this to our GNOME desktop, and we'll just save this as a Word document, and we should be able to refresh desktop directory, and there we go, we have a doc file. Of course, we don't have anything on Linux to open that up with, but yeah, I mean, there you go. So that is just instantaneous file sharing between these two operating systems, which is pretty freaking cool for sure. Some other things of note: you don't have to configure any network options within Windows, because Win4Lin actually maps Windows network calls directly to the Linux TCP/IP stack. Basically what that means is it does not emulate a separate like network card for the virtualized environment. It just has direct access to your system's network adapter. So if I open up Internet Explorer here, we are on the network wired in via Ethernet. I can go to, you know, theoldnet.com. If I can actually put the domain correctly, let me get out of that. And we'll go to theoldnet.com, and there we go. So we are online and we can browse the web as we please. Another cool thing I'd like to show you is that you can run Win4Lin in full screen. So I'm going to shut down and get out of the Windows environment for now. And if I open up Terminal here and type in fwin, that will tell it to run the Windows environment in full screen. Now it will keep our resolution setting, so in this case I'm going to go in and set it back to 800 by 600, but I've noticed that the colors and everything display a lot better. Like, you see these icons, they don't look as glitched out as they were before. And yeah, I can go into properties here and bump this up to 800 by 600, still in 256 color, but everything just looks a lot better. Now, what's interesting is the way this works is it actually runs Windows under a separate X session or an X server session. and it maps this as display 1 because we already have display 0 running. That is the Linux environment. So whenever you start an X session, when there's not already a graphical session running, it will map that as display 0, and then anything after that will be display 1, display 2, etc., so on and so forth. And it maps those to the function keys on your keyboard, beginning with F7 for display 0. And you can switch between them by pressing Control-Alt and then one of those function keys. So if I press Control-Alt F7, I will hop back to the Linux environment. And then, because the X session running Windows is mapped as display 1, if I press Control-Alt F8, I can switch back over to that. So yeah, you have easy switchability between the two environments. Now, one of the things that Win4Lin does not support is DirectX. So if you have any DirectX games, you're not going to have a fun time running those whatsoever. Of course, you guys know the Half-Life rule on this channel, so we are going to try and install Half-Life and see if we can use the software renderer. I imagine it's not going to work at all. There it is. Half-Life requires DirectX version 6 or above. Please install DirectX 6 and restart Half-Life, which, yeah, we're not going to be able to do. Alright, so that's that. We're going to quit out of Windows because I want to talk about MS-DOS for a little bit. As I mentioned, we do have an installation of that on here as well. So if we run the win setup command again, we can get into the DOS session configuration, and so we have, you know, kind of those same settings with like drives and file system. We can choose what we want that is mounted. So this J drive here is actually like the DOS installation. So you've got like command.com in there. So this is what it will be booting off of. But you've got, again, you know, display settings and, you know, device settings and all that in here. But we'll just cancel out of that. And to run DOS, the command is just DOS. And here we get brought to a DOS prompt, and I believe, I've not tried this yet, but I believe we can run FDOS as well to... Nope, we cannot. Okay, so that is good to know. So you cannot make DOS full screen, you can only run it in a window. I've got this, this copy of Doom here, and yeah, we're going to see if we can get this running. And we're going to install, yeah, we can put it on the C drive, that's fine. Run it to Doom, or install it to Doom rather. Yes, create the directory. Alright, so we just went through all 4 diskettes and it's copied everything over, so it's now asking for disk 1 again. So I'm gonna pop that in and we'll press enter to have it do its decompression. And yeah, we're just gonna say keyboard only. We do not have a music or sound interface, so we're gonna save settings and run Doom and see if this works. Ah, we get an error message. VM died. That's a great one. The VM86 process died. Alright, so yeah, that doesn't seem like it's going to be working for us. We can try it again, I mean, just for the heck of it. But, I don't know, maybe we can increase the memory or something. Let's see, C or CD Doom. Run Doom here. Yeah, VM86 process died. Alright, well, I've got that same error message, so that doesn't seem to be a memory thing, unfortunately. Well, you know, now I'm curious. Since we installed Doom, you know, to the C drive that we can access from the Windows installation, I wonder if we can just run it, you know, from here. So let's boot back into Windows and open up a DOS prompt. Back up to the C drive. It's that way. CD Doom, and we'll run Doom. We get the same error. Okay, and then it immediately crashes. So yeah, it's not like in Doom on here, unfortunately. It's one of the few times I've actually not been able to run Doom on something. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for Win4Lin. That's everything I really wanted to go over. This program, you know, it's a pretty neat implementation of a virtualization solution when you aren't trying to intentionally break it, that is. But I mean, as you saw, we were able to install Microsoft Office. We were able to share files between Windows and Linux, browse the web. All that right out of the box is pretty fantastic. And like I said, this and VMware were practically the same price. I mean, Win4Lin was like a little bit cheaper, but you could go with either solution and probably be just fine if you're just wanting to run, you know, Microsoft Office or another Windows like productivity application suite. But if you were doing anything more than that, especially gaming, you would just want to have a Windows partition on your hard drive for that purpose. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, get subscribed, maybe consider becoming a patron or a channel member to get early access to these videos before anybody else. But either way, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.